In the recent chapters of the manga, we get a Zoro flashback where we meet Kuzaburo and how he talks about blades, cursed blades, that they're not really cursed, that it's just that the swordsman isn't strong enough, if you will. And we got a lot of things about swords, Enma specifically, and even in the SBS, we got a picture, a fan art by the Usopp Gallery, I believe. They usually do stuff in some of the volumes in some of the SBS, I believe. And in the recent SBS, Oda made a comment on the picture of a couple swordsmen, and what he said was the swordsman fan art had Oda commenting saying, translating, the swordsmen line up, getting cut by them hurts. And there's a couple swordsmen on there, and some that aren't on there. Specifically, I'd say some that I'm surprised aren't on there. Ryuma, he's not there, as well as King. I know, well, King doesn't necessarily consider himself a swordsman, but King's not on there. Taishigi and Big Mom, those are some people who I'd say should be on there that aren't. But I decided in this video I'd be ranking all 12, I believe that's how many there are of them in terms of strength. And in terms of how we're going to do this, it's kind of hard because we're going to do them as of chapter 1035. That's how we're going to rank them in terms of strength. Except for Rayleigh and except for Roger, we're going to do them when they're at their strongest, so in their prime. But with that out of the way, my name's Potential Unleashed, and let's get to ranking the 12 strongest swordsmen according to this fan art. Coming in last, we have Hachi. Reason being because he does not know that having more swords does not necessarily mean you're the strongest. Because in the fight against Zoro, Zoro's like, my sword's way more than yours, and he was like, are you dumb? Like, I have more swords, obviously mine way more than yours. So he doesn't know necessarily what it really means to be a swordsman. He just swings his sword around. However, Zoro lost, he lost to Zoro, who was already weakened because of his fight with Mihawk Zoro, and he easily defeated him as well. But Hachi, he's not that good of a swordsman. And this one can be debated. We don't know how strong he is out of the time skip now that he's on CP0, but for number 11, I have Kaku, specifically because, well, as we've seen him, I'm going off of everything we've seen, he lost to Zoro at Enies Lobby, and right now we're all the way at Wano, where different characters or other characters on this list have either proven more, or we've seen them in, or their bounty, or them in a stronger part of the series. But Kaku, he is a 2-sword style user, and then whenever he uses his Tempest kick, I believe that's what it's called, when he does kind of like Zoro's 1,000-pound Phoenix or 180-pound Phoenix, he uses that as he sends Slash in the air. So technically, if you want, you could say he can use the 4-sword style. But Kaku, even with his Devil Fruit involved with how he uses his swords, I still have him as the second weakest. But that could very well go up because he's now a part of CP0, and he probably has gotten stronger after the time skip. Number 10, we have Cavendish. I have him here because even though he's a good swordsman, let's be real, his bounty was, I believe, either 10 million higher, or it was equal to Zoro's bounty, which is 320. But if Zoro and Cavendish, if they were to fight, we all know who's winning. Cavendish, he is very skilled. We saw what he was doing in D block, and we know that he's also very skilled whenever he goes to sleep, and Haku, or Hakuba, I believe that's his name, comes awake because Hakuba is faster and more skilled with the blade. He's probably better than Cavendish in my opinion, but this is about Cavendish and not Hakuba. Another one that could possibly go higher on this list, as number 9, I have Vista, but the reason why I'm placing him this low is for 2 reasons. One, I don't know his bounty, so if his bounty's like in the high 800s, or it's not going to be higher than Marco's, and it might not be higher than Ace's, but bounty does not mean everything, but it does show a threat. And so he was able to go against Mihawk for a little bit. We know that he is, and even Mihawk acknowledged him, saying he knows who he is because, well, he's the best swordsman on the Wiper Pirates. Everybody should know him. But in terms of where we're at the story, I don't have enough evidence to put him higher than that, but depending on his bounty and depending when we see him again, he could very well go higher than number 9. At number 8, I have Trafalgar Law, because Law, even though he's very skilled with the blade, he technically uses, I'd say, his Devil Fruit more than anything. A lot of his attacks are primarily Counter Shock, Gamma Knife, and it uses Room Tat, and so his sword is kind of like an afterthought. So I wouldn't be mad if people put Vista over Law. And even when he cut that mountain on Punk Hazard, it wasn't really him as a swordsman. It was more of him and his devil fruit going hand in hand with his swordsmanship. At number 7, I'm going to go with Shiryu of the Rain. We haven't really seen much from him, but in terms of portrayal, he's right hand of Blackbeard. He was as strong, and I'd say now probably stronger than Magellan with the clear fruit. And Shiryu, he's probably a good swordsman. The reason why I'm putting him this high is because he's going to probably be Zoro's final opponent. In terms of going against pirates, that's about it, simply because of portrayal. This is probably where we get into the big boys. I'm going to say for number 6, I have Zoro. Zoro is already considered a master swordsman, and he's just getting even stronger. His fight with Kaido, him learning advanced conquerors, is just the reason why I have certain characters over him is because, for example, which this leads into number 5, I have Odin over Zoro because in chapter, I believe 133 or 134, he talked about how Odin can use Enma and wield it like a feather, where Zoro is still struggling and putting the amount of conquerors needed for Enma to truly be utilized to the full extent. So if Odin can do that and then some, I still have to have him over Zoro, but I believe when Wano is over, Zoro will be stronger than Kasugi Odin. I feel like this one's probably going to be the most controversial, but for number 4, I have Prime Rayleigh. I do think Rayleigh was strong. I do think that he was relative to Roger, but I think that Shanks, Mihawk, and Roger, they're stronger than him, and in terms of the blade, I think they're better. Specifically because I think Shanks and Mihawk, the more you get into the current era, the more I feel like at the younger age they have more potential. For example, how like older Whitebeard and Kaido and all of them are fighting against a supernova now, and how Luffy, Zoro, Kid, Law, all of them are keeping up and going against these Yonko at such a young age. I just think the younger you get, from the old era to the current era to the new era, I just feel like they're better and have more potential. Which leaves, I'm going to do 2 and 3 at the same time. For number 3, I have Shanks. Number 2, I have Mihawk. We can go through this debate. It's never going to get solved, probably until we see them clash, maybe in the film Red. I don't know. But I have Mihawk over Shanks because of the Ethiot, the world's strongest swordsman. I think you have to be the strongest, if that makes sense. And for Zoro to have advanced conquerors, it only makes sense for Mihawk to have advanced conquerors. And Zoro has all of this, and Mihawk still has a black blade, and Zoro doesn't. So I'm gonna have to put him over Shanks for that very purpose. And lastly, number 1, I have Roger, the only person in terms of strength I have. It's probably Whitebeard over him, but Whitebeard's not on this list. Roger and Ace, they went against Whitebeard, who's the strongest man, and so they had and split the skies, and they also had where the conquerors, they weren't touching each other. So I have to give Roger number 1. He's proven the most on this list. But in terms of technique, if I was doing it off of that instead of strength, I'd probably move Vista up a little bit to where he's behind Zoro, but that's about it. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with me in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so you guys never miss out on a new video. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, and TikTok is on the screen and in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to unleash your potential.